Good morning, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the FinSide with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the FanSided Network and FinFanatic.com. I'm Brian Cat, NFL. Paul is Fanatic_pick on Twitter. This is one I badly want to win against the Chargers here. It is Dolphins are favored right now by 3.5 points. Going into LA here on Sunday Night Football. Game was flexed out. Chargers have a litany of injuries. And most importantly, if the Dolphins win this game here, they're, for argument's sake, they're in the playoffs. They've essentially clinched a playoff spot. Clinch may not be the right word, but if they win this game, their odds of making the postseason have increased to about 97%. So for argument's sake, they're in the postseason. So much would have to happen for that not to be the case, even if they were to lose out after this game, which we don't think is going to happen either. But Paul, the major story here, aside from obviously the Tua versus Herbert conversation that will never end, is the Chargers on the defensive side of the ball. No Joey Bosa, no JC Jackson, both on injured reserve. And we learned yesterday that Derwin James, its safety is going to be doubtful for this game. Defensive tackle Sebastian Joseph Day, their best run defender by far on a terrible run defense, doubtful. Their nickel back, Bryce Callahan, who had a pick 6 last week, also. So I really can't see any way the Dolphins don't put 30 points on the board here.
They should. I mean, it's we talked at length about the accuracy issues that Tua suddenly had last week. I don't expect that to continue in this one. I do expect the Dolphins to get Jeff Wilson more involved. One big thing that they have to do here is control time of possession a little bit better. Get a few first downs, not have so many series that, are less than 30, 40 seconds long on the clock because they go 3 and out or throw an interception or fumble. That's something they really need to do here, not just for the offensive side's sake, but for the defensive side as well.
Absolutely. And in addition to the injuries here, the Chargers, as far as the run defense is concerned, and to your point about being able to keep balance here, the Chargers are historically bad in run defense, and that's even before losing Sebastian Joseph Day. You look at they are allowing this year 5.43 yards a carry on the ground to everyone. The last team to be that bad in yards per carry allowed, the 1959 Washington Redskins. And it even gets worse from there if possible. Against opposing running backs, they're allowing 5.61 yards per carry. To opposing starting running backs, they're allowing over 6 yards a carry. Ooh. So, I mean, this is historically bad. And I will say that I've given Mike McDaniel a little bit of the benefit of the doubt for not running the ball much for the last game and a half, because I know the temptation is there when you have receivers running wide open all game. But in this game, yeah, you've got to stick with the run in this game.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not to say you can't pass the ball with guys like JC Jackson, Derwin James, et cetera, out, and with pass rushers out. Like Joey Bosa, it's you need to run to set up the pass in this one. You need to run to set up your play actions. And if you can do that, you can control the entirety of this game. And like you said, you should be able to easily put up 30 points in this game.
Right. Yeah. And looking deeper at the Chargers secondary there, Asante Samuel Jr., who is a very hit and miss cornerback, usually miss. Last week against Devontae Adams, allows 8 catches, 177 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that's one side. On the other side, you've got Michael Davis, who, in my opinion, is a really underrated cornerback, but doesn't bring a lot of speed to the table. So, I mean, just like usual, a big mismatch here with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, really against whoever they face. And as far as stats are concerned, a couple of milestones to look out for. Tua Tagovailoa needs 141 yards to get to 3,000 on the year. And Tyreek Hill needs 21 to get to 1,400 on the year. Jalen Waddle needs 28 yards to get to 1,000. So milestones that should all be hit this week. But
Waddle's been flirting with 1,000 for weeks now, though.
Yeah, he had one catch for 9 yards last week. He was missed on several throws, or he and Tua were off on several throws, and he also played with an ankle injury that he insists he's fine with now. So, yeah, I mean, big mismatch here for the Chargers everywhere on the defensive side of the ball heading into this game.
No, there is. And really on both sides of the ball, there's a lot of issues. Rashawn Slater's out. Trey Pipkins is probably is he doubtful or is he out?
He's doubtful. Rashawn Slater's on injured reserve.
Yep.
And Trey Pipkins is doubtful for this game. And Pipkins has been a little bit more of a bright spot for them than he was in previous seasons. So, yeah, I mean, that's a big problem too. That's another matchup that the Dolphins have a clear advantage on that side of the ball. I mean, you've got Corey Linsley is going to return from injury. He's out of the concussion protocol, so that's going to be a big return for them. But at the offensive tackle position, certainly not looking good there for the Chargers.
Yeah, no, with Miami's litany of pass rushers, they should be able to get to Justin Herbert a little bit in this one. And then, yeah, no, like I feel like Miami's got the advantage on both sides of the ball. And when you look at, I know we talked a little bit about this before, people crapped all over Josh Boyer in the defense last week. Miami only had 3 drives that went for 40 or more yards last week on defense. 2 of those 3 drives were drives that were extended by those questionable pass interference calls we talked about. The other, they went 54 yards and got a field goal. The only drives they got a lot of touchdown on were drives that were extended by pass interference last week. They started with their back against the wall. They started after Miami on offense, held the ball for 30 seconds or less, 4 different times, a minute and a half or less or 4 plays or less on every drive except for 2. There were only 2 drives Miami had more than 4 plays last week. That puts the defense's back against the wall horrendously. So the fact that they allowed 4 field goals last week it sounds big, or 30 points got scored on Miami last week sounds big, but really the defense held in a way that you don't expect the defense to, because a lot of times the defense comes off the field and they're right back out there 1 play later in 7 seconds, 3 plays later in 25 seconds, and several times starting in their own territory. That's a pretty damn good game if you actually take a look at it and look deeper at the stats. So this defense against basically a more complete offense last week, even though they had Brock Purdy in, really should be able to do some good things here against the struggling Chargers offensive line.
Well, I rewatched the game, the 49ers game and the All-22, and I'll say that I had a lot more appreciation for how they played defense last week than I originally did. When Brock Purdy got in the game, I had such an expectation that they were just going to clobber this offense into the ground. Yeah. And they didn't. And look, I'm not saying, well, you went up against Brock Purdy, he's great, so what else are you going to do? But the reality is there were 4 or 5 throws that I look at and Brock Purdy made, and I was like, it's a perfect throw in that situation. And I don't know what else the defense could do. I mean, there were some missed tackles on defense that kept some drives going too. You had the Duke Riley falling down in the first drive. I don't think it was a great defensive game from them, but not a game where I'm looking at Josh Boyer saying, what are you doing here? I don't think the strategy was bad. I mean, you look at just a couple, that one pass to George Kittle down the middle for like 15 yards, which was a big play. I mean, Jalen Phillips was basically untouched to the quarterback and leveled Brock Purdy. And Eric Rose in a trail position for some reason there and on that play, and George Kittle makes the catch and for a first down. I mean, there weren't many big plays, and again, I mean, I hate to go back to officiating, but Gator Kohu had a pass interference that shouldn't have been called. Xavier Howard had one called that I thought very easily could have been let go. He wasn't he had basically his arm on the defender's back, but he wasn't cupping him or reaching around or anything like that. And the touchdown to Juszczyk last week, clear offensive pass interference. I just don't know how you don't call that, because I was wondering how do you let that guy so wide open? And well, okay, you have the reason. You had a pick play on that one.
Well, and really, there were 11 meaningful drives in this game or last week that the defense had. On 8 of the 11, they either forced a field goal, a punt, or an interception, and held the offense to under 40 yards. On one, the opening drive of the game, they did an okay job when it mattered and held to the field goal. And then on the 2 drives, the 49ers actually scored a touchdown on. They were both extended by the questionable pass interference, and as you said, one of the touchdowns clearly had offensive pass interference. So when you break it down like that, take a look at the average starting position and everything else that the offense put them in. Really, the defense played well, and they played well enough to win. And I don't expect the offense to struggle bust the way they did last week again. It's we've seen in the past too, where the defense will come out firing on all cylinders and the offense just collapses and throws a turd on the field. And then the defense eventually follows suit because they're exhausted, they're demoralized, and all these other things. And this defense didn't get in that boat last week. And it kept Miami inexplicably in this game last week, despite how horribly they played on offense. So and Miami's got one of the most explosive offenses in the league. So I don't expect that horrific performance on offense to happen again.
I'm with you on that. And when the Dolphins score more than 17 points, they don't lose this year. And that's why I say, and when the Dolphins get to, when they get to over 17 points, they don't lose this year. And I can't see this Chargers defense holding them below 30, to be quite honest. I'm not trying to count my chickens before they hatch, but there's no excuse for not. I mean, with what the Dolphins bring to the table, they average with their 2 running backs almost 5 yards a carry. The Chargers are allowing almost 6. On defense, you've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle going up against Asante Samuel Jr., Michael Davis, and at safety, you're going to have Alohi Gilman, a box strong safety backup, and Nasir Adderley, who's just an okay player. You know, there's major mismatch problems here for the Dolphins on both sides of the ball. And defensively, even though, I mean, you take a look at the Dolphins' last 3 opponents. The Browns, say what you want about the Browns, have a very good offensive line. The Texans, poor interior offensive line, but really good at the tackle spots. And the 49ers have a very good offensive line headed by Trent Williams, who is, to me, by far the best left tackle in the game, and went up against Bradley Chubb this week. You're going up this week against an offensive line of Jeremy Salyer, who's been actually kind of a bright spot for them, the left tackle, but still a 6th-round rookie guard who's moved to that spot. Matt Filer, Corey Linsley, who's a really good player, Zion Johnson, who's had an okay rookie year, and some no-name right tackle, Forrest Merrill, I believe.
Foster Sarrell.
Foster Sarrell, thank you. Forrest Merrill's on injured reserve. Easily confused with those two.
Forrest Merrill would have started above Foster Sarrell.
Gotcha. So thank you. So the Dolphins.
So wait, hold on. Before you say anything more, for those of our listeners that are new, it says something that Kat actually has to question who the hell's playing right tackle. It's because you can pop out there with who is the 3rd string left inside linebacker for Green Bay, and he's probably got it somewhere in there in a minute. Like, And for him to go,
they don't have one, actually. They don't have a third stringer.
see,
So
uh,
yeah, I really struggle with name recall on an opponent that we're playing. But
and
yeah,
that says a
that's
lot about Foster Sarrell right there. No offense to Foster Sarrell, and no offense to Forrest Merrill, but that says a tremendous amount here. And honestly, one of the things I thought was kind of interesting too is I believe I saw that the Chargers were one of the teams that tried to sign Eric Fisher at one point.
yeah, I'm surprised they didn't. And
Fisher
I wonder if
got
Fisher
over 9 teams make an offer to him by the end of August.
and I wonder because a big question when the Dolphins signed Fisher, I had two concerns with him. And right now I love the signing, but I had two concerns initially was number one, is this a sign that Teron Armstead is a long way away from returning? That does not appear to be the case. In fact, he practiced on a limited basis, and every time he's practiced anytime during the week, he has played in the game. So we fully expect him to play. And then secondly, my other question was Fisher really just kind of getting healthy and saving himself for the right opportunity? Or was his phone just not ringing? Well, we know that's not the case either.
No,
So
so the Colts tried to re-sign Fisher right away. They tried to re-sign him right up until mid-April. When they finally pulled out of that Eric Fisher sweepstakes. By all reports, Eric Fisher had 9 teams that put offers in front of him by the end of August, and a handful that have approached him throughout the season. And all along the way, it's basically been that he was going to wait for the right opportunity to come in and basically do what Odell Beckham was looking to do and come in and help a team go and win a Super Bowl and get another ring. So I'm not upset to hear that. I mean, we've had a few folks think, oh, he was on the street, nobody wanted to sign him. Sometimes these guys at 31 years old hang back and try to wait to make another run at a Super Bowl and figure out which team needs them and for that Super Bowl push. And
it's a big compliment to the Dolphins that Eric Fisher wanted to come in here, even though when Armstead's healthy, they don't have a glaring need at the tackle spot when the players are healthy. But Fisher, we'll see if he contributes at right tackle. That would be ideal. You get Armstead and Fisher on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
He hasn't played right tackle in, I believe, going back to college. So that's one thing. But also, too, you've got an insurance policy there with Teron Armstead if Fisher's ready to play. And Fisher is a very good fit in this offense that requires offensive linemen to be able to get out in space. So, yeah, I mean, I'm certainly excited about that. And if you look back at the offseason, I said on this show here that if you don't come away with Teron Armstead, you've got to get Eric Fisher because those are the two top guys. Well, now the Dolphins have both of them here for the stretch run. So going back to the defensive side of the ball and the Chargers offensive line, look, the Dolphins have invested a lot in this defensive line. Okay. Jalen Phillips, mid-first round pick, having a really good season. Christian Wilkins having a great season at D tackle, mid-first round pick. Zach Sealer, they signed to a contract extension. He's playing out of his mind. Bradley Chubb, they trade a first rounder for, and he's going to go from playing Trent Williams to playing Jamari Salyer here. So, and you've also got Raekwon Davis and also Melvin Ingram, the former Charger, returning. I'm not going to say it's a revenge game, but playing his old team. So my point is that this right here is a game late in the season in December, going up against a really good quarterback. This is why you put this defensive line together so that they can take over games like this, because Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense, they're not really an offense that gets a lot of big plays, but they can put together some long drives if they can manufacture some pass protection. The Dolphins defense and defensive line cannot let that happen.
Yeah, no, it's Christian Wilkins, I think, has a chance to feast again in this one and really set up guys like Jalen Phillips, Melvin Ingram, Bradley Chubb to be able to get to Justin Herbert. And they need to get Justin Herbert seeing ghosts the way they did a couple years ago by moving around a little bit, masking coverages, and really, really surprising him with who is hitting him in the face. They need to do a little bit more of those creative blitzes with Jerome Baker. I'm going to keep saying it until they do it, because end of the day, last year when they weren't sending him very often, he became an ineffective player. They were putting him off his spot and not sending him. And then by the end of the season last year, after about week 10, Jerome Baker came in and was defensive player of the month for the month of December. Like, and we've seen it a couple of times when they've actually sent him recently. He's able to make some good things happen. And against an offensive line like this is a chance to make some good things happen with Baker, because his speed is uncommon amongst linebackers at the position he plays.
Yeah, and they have been blitzing Baker more lately. And if you look at the numbers, besides Jalen Phillips, they blitz Baker the second most on the defense. So I do hope they keep doing that as well. But defensively, one thing to keep an eye out for too is that Mike Williams practiced this week. And this season, since week 1, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen have been on the field together for only 30 plays. So they're going to have both of them, as well as Austin Eckler, who is on pace for 120 catches this year. Now, it's going to be fascinating to see as well how the Dolphins have adjusted since last week, because, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, McCaffrey's a better player, arguably overall, but similar styles. They catch a lot of passes. They're low to the ground, stocky types of running backs, but 8 catches for 80 yards last week from McCaffrey. Eckler can certainly do that or more if the Dolphins don't watch out for him.
You know who's going to piss me off if he goes wild against us? Xander Horvath. That's who.
Oh God, I'm not worried about any fullback in the league other than Juice Check and maybe like a Reggie Gilliam or something like that for the Bills. But Alec Ingold is somebody I hope does catch some more passes here, because I thought he was open a lot more against the 49ers, and
there was a lot of people were open a lot more.
Right. And what the Niners did last week and how they adjusted is they started moving their linebackers back, and it opened up everything underneath, and they were daring them to just nickel and dime their way down the field. The Dolphins should have taken them up on that opportunity. I mean, there was a lot open short last game. So hopefully the Dolphins keep an eye out for that. Yeah. So, and now as far as Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, one of the better wide receiver tandems in the league when they're both on the field together. Both more possession type receivers, though. And that's what goes back to, if the Chargers have any chance to have success in this game, they've got to put together 4, 5, 6 long drives because they're not a team that's gotten a lot of big plays compared to the rest of the league.
Which is funny to say, because the big thing in the Herbert and Tua debate is the big arm of Justin Herbert, the big bomb it down the field of Justin Herbert, where you're looking to basically take it all in one play. And for them to have to start putting together long drives, that kind of goes against the argument for Herbert, but I don't think he's going to have the time to allow those plays to develop with the offensive line in the situation it is.
Right. Yeah, that's just it. And if you look at the last 3 weeks here, with the Chargers offensive line, again, they have allowed, let's see here, over 43% pressure rate on Justin Herbert in each of the last 4 games, or each of the last 3 games. I mean, you're talking about almost. He drops back twice. He's getting pressured, sacked, or hit on one of them. I mean, that spells really bad news for this type of game here. Against the Raiders last week, 5 sacks, 14 quarterback hits. In the last 3 games, 14 sacks allowed. I mean, yeah, that's they've got to keep the pressure up. There's no excuse here for the Dolphins defensive line to not dominate this matchup, and that's where the defensively that's where the success has to happen. But going back to what you're saying about Herbert and Tua, because that is such a big story here in this game, obviously. Just some stats here from Barry Jackson. I just flat out took these off of the article that he wrote. Just running a few by here. Fourth quarter quarterback rating. Tua 125.1, Justin Herbert 83.3. I mean, you want to talk about a difference there. Yards per attempt, Tua's best in the league with 9. Herbert 26 with 6.5. Yards minus after the catch, meaning how often is the ball traveling in the air to the receiver. Tua 64% of the time, and Justin Herbert 45% of the time. So 55% of the yards that Herbert's thrown for has been after the receiver has caught the ball. Completion percentage, Tua 68.1, Herbert 66.7. 20-plus yard plays, Tua is far better in that category. First downs per attempt, Tua's best in the league at 43.2. Herbert's 32.2. First downs on third and long, Tua's much better. Red zone, Tua's best in the league compared to Herbert, who's 21st in the league. So every statistical category, Tua is better. Now, having said that, Tua's had a lot more help this year. Herbert is not. But then again, last year, that argument didn't seem to fly for a lot of people when the Dolphins had Austin Jackson and Jesse Davis at tackle.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you on that. And one of the things I'd like to look at too is it's if we end up with Eric Fisher and Teron Armstead at tackle, and Justin Herbert's got oh God, I'm blanking on the names already for Serrell. Was it Serrell?
Whoever it is, the right tackle.
Right. Like, and Salyer at left tackle. Miami, against a much better offensive line last week, had 4 sacks, 10 quarterback hits. I forget exactly how many hurries, and should be able to feast against this offensive line here, especially with the development of Kader Kohou, because one of the big things for this Dolphins defense is the symbiotic relationship between their corners and their pass rush. And with Kohou doing better and better each week in coverage, they're able to dial up their pass rush a little bit more, which is also helping Kohou and Xavier Howard look better and better back there yet again, because they're forcing quarterbacks into bad throws and hurried passes and panic moments. So if they were able to get to the quarterback 10 times last week for hits as well as 4 sacks, they should be able to do that again here. And they've been putting pressure on quarterbacks the past few weeks. Absolutely. So I really expect that to be one of the big storylines in this game. And Miami, as in contrast to that, allowed, give me 1 second here, 6 sacks and 5 quarterback hits last week. There were the 3 to Boza that were just murderous, but outside of that, it really wasn't that bad until things got bad. So it's in reality, like, we can malign our offensive line, but they're playing better than some of those lines out there. And
well, I mean,
yeah, you know what I'm saying.
You're talking about the Dolphins offensive line playing better than a lot of lines. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and look, I think a big issue last week was because Armstead was not out there and Nick, it was on the road and was Nick Bosa. I really think that's what made Tua a little bit jittery here in this past game. There is not that threat in this game. And on both sides of the ball, the Dolphins are going to come into this game pissed off. I'm very convinced about that. Defensively, like you said, 4 sacks, 10 quarterback hits on a really good offensive line. Now, they didn't win the game, and on the board it said 33. So, I mean, I'm with you on that. And so we've talked about quite a bit here, but I'm all over the place here now. But the Chargers on defense now, their best player is Khalil Mack, and Khalil Mack, 6.5 sacks this year, rushes over right tackle. That's a matchup the Dolphins really do have to look out for, going up probably against Brandon Shell in this one, and may need to keep Durham Smythe in there, who is questionable in there to chip block if that's the case, because the rest of their defensive line is non-existent. They're missing their top 4 defensive tackles from the beginning of the year. It's gotten so bad that they tried to claim a guy named Taylor Stallworth off of waivers here this week. And, Stallworth has been just a, decent backup who's bounced around a little bit. They tried to claim him. The Texans were higher on the waiver priority, so they got him instead. So they are just looking for anybody that can help there on the defensive interior. Their linebackers are also terrible at stopping the run. You've got Khalil Mack, who's really a pass rusher. Kyle Van Noy we'll see in this game, who is their other outside linebacker. And a common question is, does he have any insight on Tua that can help the Chargers defense?
Not really.
Well, no, I would say that Tua is a completely different quarterback than what he saw in 2020. So any insight that he gives is going to be wrong. So, and then you've got Kenneth Murray, who's been a struggling former first-round pick. He's questionable in this game. Andrew Tranquil, who's just an okay player. But, I mean, you've got a lot of outside of Khalil Mack and maybe another guy or two, you've got a lot of C-, D+ types of players here starting for the Chargers.
Yeah, and Van Noy is just a shadow of the player he was with Miami, which was an okay player. Which because that player in Miami was a shadow of the player he was in New England, and he's more of a leader than anything else. But yeah, no, their defense does not scare me in any way, shape, or form. I mean, Khalil Mack can occasionally disrupt your offense, but outside of that, I mean, I kind of like Nasir Adderley and Asante Samuel Jr.
They're talented. That's for sure. And, Samuel Jr. is, like I said, very hit and miss. And last game, he allowed 8 catches for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns to Devontae Adams.
Terrell Buckley.
Yeah, he is. He is, absolutely. By the way, Terrell Buckley is, I believe, a coach in the XFL now. I think he just got a job. So I'll tell you this, with T-Buck there as your head coach, you're either going to lose 50-0 or win 50-0 every game.
I was going to say, you're going to go all out on every play, though. Let me tell you.
Speaking of cornerbacks, thanks, Grandizer, for dropping that gem there in the chat earlier here. Xavier Howard needs an interception to pass or tie Patrick Surtain with 29 career interceptions as a Dolphin. So
and he's 3 away from Sam.
Wow. Man, oh man. Yeah, he's been, what a fantastic pick he's been since being a second rounder out of Baylor in 2016. Paul, before we get to the predictions, one thing we haven't mentioned yet is Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill are top 5 in Pro Bowl votes. Now, I know we don't care a lot about Pro Bowl on this show, but the rest
Tua
of the leagues,
Tagovailoa is top 1.
Yes, he is.
Votes.
Yes, he is. And here that it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating with to see how many Dolphins get into the Pro Bowl. Because I'll tell you this might sound crazy. Tua is not a lock to make the Pro Bowl still. And I say that because, look, they take 3 quarterbacks in the AFC. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are in. There's no doubt about that. So you're going to have Tua going up against Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. You may say, Lamar Jackson, are you kidding me? Well, Lamar Jackson did not deserve to get in last year, and he did.
It's a popularity vote.
Yeah, it is. But Tua's winning that with the fans. So I do think Tua's going to be that 3rd quarterback to make the Pro Bowl, if you care about that.
I still think Tua is going to have to step away and allow his first alternate to step in because he's going to have a game the following week.
Wow. Okay. I hope so. And then, so as far as the Pro Bowl, I see 2 absolute mortal locks. Tyreek Hill and Tyron Armstead. Both are leading in the votes. Both have made several Pro Bowls before. I don't see any way. Hill is not one of the top 3, and Armstead is not one of the top 3 at left tackle. Now, wide receiver, you've got 3 mortal locks to make the Pro Bowl. They take 4. You've got Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and Stephon Diggs. Those 3 are in. Then for the 4th spot, I think it's going to be a battle between Jalen Waddle and T. Higgins for that 4th spot. Slight advantage Waddle because the Dolphins have been more in the news for having one of the most explosive offenses in the league. But I could see that spot also easily going to T. Higgins. I hope it goes to Waddle, though. And then Alec Ingold leading all fullbacks in votes. He's going to be going up against Patrick Ricard for that spot. I don't see anybody else in competition. But there's a possibility that between Tua, Hill, Waddle, Ingold and Armstead, the Dolphins could have 5 Pro Bowlers on the offensive side of the ball.
I was gonna say on offense, because on defense, let's face it, Javon Holland could have a legit shot. Xavier Howard could have a legit shot. Bradley Chubb, and Christian Wilkins at the very least.
Yeah, all of them have a shot. I think Xavier Howard, if I had to guess, Xavier Howard will be the Dolphins' only Pro Bowler on defense, and I'll tell you why. There are not a lot of great cornerbacks in the AFC this year, and Xavier Howard, had the interception last week, had the touchdown 2 weeks ago. He has the reputation. He's looked a lot better. I think he gets in. Javon Holland has a shot, no doubt about it. Did he make enough big plays to get in as a second-year player? I'm not sure. Christian Wilkins at D tackle, I think he certainly deserves it.
He's the most unlikely of them, even though he deserves the hell out of it this year.
Yeah, there's a lot. I see 3 guys that probably just based on reputation, if not play, are going to be in. Chris Jones is definitely in. DeForest Buckner probably, multiple-time Pro Bowler, having a good year. And Cameron Hayward, who has made like the last 4 Pro Bowl. Those are probably your 3 guys, but Wilkins certainly deserves a shot. At defensive end, you've got Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, who are mortal locks. And then it'll be interesting to see if Bradley Chubb or Jalen Phillips are counted as outside linebackers or defensive ends. I guess, yeah.
The other aspect that could affect this, Miami's next 3 games at the very least are nationally televised games. Right. That's true. Heat of Pro Bowl voting season. So you have a big game from an unexpected player over the next 2 weeks. You may shoot yourself into the Pro Bowl, even if you've had a not great season up to this point. So that's something to keep an eye on too. Having, we're nationally televised tomorrow night on Sunday Night Football. We're nationally televised against the Bills next Saturday night on Saturday Night Football, or whatever the hell they're calling it, Sunday Night Football on Saturday night, or whatever the hell they're calling it this week. And then Christmas Day, you're the only 1:00 game going up against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. So, I mean, you legit have a chance at a lot of very positive things, and to turn the reputation of this franchise around in so many ways, including, the one that counts the least in going to the Pro Bowl video game competition. Like, let's face it.
I'm so glad they're not playing that game anymore. But I'm glad they kept the Pro Bowl roster actually intact, and the All-Pro team is what means the most. But anyway, I'm looking forward to this game. I really want this one. If the Dolphins win, their playoff chances go above 95%. If they lose, they fall down to about 72. And then they've got at Buffalo the following week.
Well, it's easy. Don't lose.
Yeah, don't lose. And so even if they did lose this game and they lost to Buffalo and they're 8-6, their playoff odds are still about 65 to 70%. So the season's not over still, but you got to have this one. You've got to get in the play. You can get in the playoffs this week, basically, and you give yourself a shot to go into Buffalo, sweep them, and then control your own destiny for the final 3 games.
Let's just not lose a game the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's a good situation.
That's easy math. I think the odds are 100% if they do that. I mean,
yes, that's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. So let's win them all. Make it easy.
Yeah. So we'll see. We're going to be on Monday night recapping the Dolphins Chargers game, not Sunday night. Give us a little bit more time, obviously. But Paul, before we do that, what's your prediction here on the game?
I just said we need to win them all to really just control our own fate here. So I think this is going to be a bloodbath based on everything we've been talking about. I think Miami wins this game. I think the Chargers manage to score 18 points. And I think Miami drops a 40 burger and wins this one 42-18.
18? How are the Chargers getting to 18?
There's going to be some field goals in there from Dicker, the kicker.
6 field goals from Dicker, the kicker. Okay.
No, he might, they might go for 2-on-1. I don't know, but we're going 18.
That's what PFF calls a scoregami.
Yeah.
A score that never happens. So
Just like a 1 point safety.
yeah, and with this prediction, and let me tell you this, I hold grudges even against players that probably don't deserve them. I don't want Ryan Tannehill to do well. I don't want Justin Herbert to do well. Okay, I root actively against them, and especially when they're playing against the Dolphins. It's important to me that Tua is better than those two guys
You're an
in the
angry
AFC
man, Brian Catanzaro.
moving forward. Because if they're not better than those two guys, they're not going to be better ever than Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. And Tua is going to perennially be the 8th or 9th best quarterback in the AFC. Obviously, that's not happening this year. Tua is number one in basically every category, and it's against a bad defense, and it needs to continue here. I'm going to go 35-27 Dolphins in a big a lot of points scored in this game. So smash that over with the over-unders 51.5.
Bold prediction. Christian Wilkins, fat guy touchdown in this game. Let's go.
I didn't even think about a bold prediction here. I'm going to say Jalen Waddle not only gets to 1,000 yards, I'm going to say he gets over 1,100 in this game. 125. He would need 128 receiving yards for that to happen. I think there will be a lot of focus on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who, when he has a bad game, he usually comes back strong. So the ankle's better. I think he comes back, and I think he has a monster game here.
He's due.
So great. That's it here. That's all we have. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the finfanatic.com website and the Fansided Network. I'm Brian Cat, NFL.
I love that kid. That's all we got. That's all we have.
Yeah, no segue into that.
just cold. Just add it. We're done.
And if it's not in the right